Boston and Maine Day behind them, early morning crews are back to work on 7470. Getting New Hampshire's only operating standard gauge coal-fired steam locomotive ready for the railroad's most colorful event of the year.
Just make sure that thing is over the hole. This thing, when you come to that, gotta go through that too. You got it.
Conway Scenic's own Roundhouse Rat, the nickname given to master mechanic Courtney Gray, leads his crew through the maintenance procedures under this 160-ton locomotive.
All right, we gotta get this main rod up and see where is that gonna stay? Yeah. All right. Now they're kind of a novelty today, because you don't see that many of them. You know, in the heyday of steam, that's all people used to see. But today, about the only place I can see a steam engine is a tourist railroad.
Built in 1921 by the Grand Trunk Railroad in Montreal, this 060 is over 70 years old, and the tender care that is given to her today will keep her 51-inch drivers turning a long time.
These engines were built way over their design. They were built to last, and they were built to run back virtually forever as long as they were maintained.
While sounds from inside stall number 1 escape outside, yard crews are busy preparing for the Conway Scenic Railroad's biggest event of the season. At the end of each summer, everyone here looks forward to celebrating Rail Fans Day, a Saturday in mid-September when the Conway Scenic Railroad opens the throttle another notch on everything this railroad has to offer. It's a big day, and switching begins weeks before to make sure everything is in place in this busy yard. Switching to a railroad is what coal is like to a steam engine. It's the fuel that fires an operation like the Conway Scenic and sends completed trains down the track. While these folks are working the North Yard today, let's take a break in the action and go inside the depot and look back into the rich history here at the Conway Scenic Railroad. Standing in the museum, one cannot help but wonder about all the travelers that have passed through this magnificent structure over the past century. On display here in the museum, railroad artifacts from the past transport you into the bygone era of train travel. There was a time when crowds would gather and ride the rails, when the town depot was the center of most people's daily lives. 1874, noted architect Nathaniel J. Bradley built this proud station for the Portsmouth, Great Falls, and Conway Railroad. After the Civil War, the pent-up demand for railroads to transport the products of northern New Hampshire's farms and forests, along with the need to open the growing tourism market, brought about a fever of railroad activity to the Mount Washington Valley area. In 1878, the Portsmouth, Great Falls, and Conway became a division of the mighty Eastern Railroad. Then, 12 years later, was absorbed into the competing Boston and Maine. In 1890, the B&M also took over the rail lines through Franconia Notch, Bethlehem, and Bretton Woods on the west side of the mountains, as well as the Cog Railway to the summit of Mount Washington. The line from Portsmouth to North Conway and Intervale became known as the B&M Conway branch. By the turn of the century, the Boston and Maine opened new avenues of commerce for rural New Hampshire. Thousands of tourists in luxurious parlor cars, Pullman sleeping cars, and elegant diners arrived to spend vacations in grand hotels and small inns. Logging railroads came into town to drop off their loads for the mills to finish into lumber. Granite blocks from local quarries were also brought to town, and the B&M would ship these goods to the big city's market. During the 1930s and 40s, B&M snow trains brought hundreds of skiers to the mountainous region, with almost 5,000 passengers sometimes passing through North Conway Station during those winter weekends. No one then would have suspected that the end of local railroading was in sight for this prosperous area. Passenger loads dropped to the point where the B&M could no longer afford to run passenger service to the area. On December the 2nd, 1961, the last regularly scheduled self-propelled B&M Budliner pulled away from the station for the final time. For the next 20 years, B&M freight service continued 3 times a week to North Conway, but this too fell victim to hard times being experienced by America's railroads. On October the 31st, 1972, freight service was formally abandoned by the Boston and Maine. The grand old days of railroading seemed to be over for this station. The neglected buildings stood empty with their future looking bleak. But 2 local businessmen wisely purchased the terminal area and its rundown buildings in the hopes that someone would come along and restore dignity and pride back to this abandoned rail yard. Their hopes were answered, for in the winter of 1968, a man by the name of Dwight Smith, himself a B&M veteran, paid a visit to North Conway and immediately fell in love with the old branch line terminal.
In 1968, there was a special rail trip run from Boston to North Conway to reenact the old ski train. And we rode up here to North Conway, and there was an hour or 2 layover. And when I got off the train and looked at that station and that roundhouse and that turntable and the area and the views, the light bulb lit. I mean, really, as basic as that. I looked around that facility and I said, oh my God, what a place for a tourist railroad.
Dwight knew what he wanted to do, so within a month, he was back in North Conway, meeting with the owners, Carol Reed and Bill Levy. After agreeing to establish a tourist railroad, Dwight set out to secure trackage rights with a B&M railroad and felt so optimistic that he went out looking for a steam locomotive. His search ended in an old roundhouse up in Sarnia, Ontario. There he found ex-Canadian national 7470 sitting alone since 1960 after switching for an industrial plant. Following an inspection and some tinkering, Dwight was the owner of an 060 steam locomotive with no place to run it. Because the B&M had decided not to sell the trackage rights to Dwight and his partners. In the meantime, 7470 was shipped and stored at Maine Central's Rigby Yard in South Portland, Maine. There, a group of devoted volunteers spent long weekend hours restoring the steam locomotive. For 3 years, the B&M dragged its feet and finally sold the tracks to a big developer, even though the B&M had been ordered by the Interstate Commerce Commission to sell to anyone willing to continue train operations. Dwight challenged the B&M, and the courts ruled in his favor. So with this good news, Dwight and his band of volunteers stepped up their efforts to restore the North Conway station.
I could see from the outside that it had potential, but the inside was depressing. It was like a haunted house, and the windows were boarded out, and beneath the boards were shards of glass. I mean, things were all broken up. There was trash and litter everywhere. The woodwork was black. I mean, black. It was 100 years of soot and smoke.
In 1973, the B&M declared bankruptcy, further delaying the start of the long-planned excursion railroad. But Dwight and his volunteers ignored these setbacks and continued working, rebuilding the roundhouse roof, which was the biggest job of all. The end was in sight. By May of 1974, Reed, Smith, and Levy incorporated the Conway Scenic Railroad. A few months later, 7470 and her proud crew pulled their first revenue train. The date, August the 4th, 1974. 6.5 years of frustration had finally come to an end, and the Conway Scenic Railroad was operating. Today, with crews putting the final touches on preparations for Railfans Day. Roadmaster Wayne Allen peers down the rails as he and his crew maintain a section of track at the west side curve. Wayne, with the help of modern equipment as well as hand tools, has been in charge of the entire 7.5-mile stretch of track since the Conway Scenic Railroad began running trains over them. Switch Engine 15 is being rewarded after a long day of pushing and pulling cuts of railroad cars around the yard. This original Maine Central Railroad 44-tonner looks just as good as it did when it was built back in 1945, and now enjoys a second life running on the rails of this operating museum here at the Conway Scenic. to their bunk cars and cabooses for an evening of rest where they will sleep overnight and wake